Well, good Monday morning to you. Welcome to our live edition of our Monday morning show, Healthy Living South Mississippi's Doctor's Nutrition Show. Jim Tabor, along with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctor's Nutrition on Callan Road in Gulfport. Another nasty, wet, rainy day along the Gulf Coast today.
Yes, it is.
So anyway, I've got a little bit of the congestion stuff going on here and working on that. So I'm under great
We just
care.
told him what to do.
Yeah, they certainly did.
Right
But we're not talking about colds today.
No,
we're
we're
talking
not.
about something that is prevalent during the holidays. Fats. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, it should be prevalent all the time, but yeah. I mean, but the main thing, the big thing, really, is so that, the viewer understands what's good and what's bad. Because fats are not all bad.
No, it's
And
got
they're
a
not all
bad
good
name over
either.
the years, and there's even a lot of new research coming out showing that actually eating fat does not make you fat. It's actually eating the sugar and the carbohydrates, like we say every time we have a show. But now there are bad fats that you can eat that are bad for your health. There's definitely stuff that you shouldn't be eating that are fats, but there's many fats that you need to eat because fat is so important for the brain.
All right, well, our phone lines are 896-0713 or 800-349-0713. If you have any questions regarding this morning's topic or anything else regarding your health, because that's what this whole show is about, is trying to live a healthier lifestyle.
Exactly. And that kind of fits right in with this fat thing because, if you're reading information out there, and if you pick up a book or something, and it's probably over 5 years old, it's out-of-date information. I mean, seriously. This stuff is changing. The information, the research on it, and so on is coming out so fast that things that we were taught 5 years ago even don't apply today because it's changing that fast. I mean, literally, the research. I think just a few shows back, we talked about the soybean oil and how bad that is for us. Okay. Got your research paper right here if anybody wants to read it, just in case.
And that's probably one of the things that people need to get out of this show the most
Yes.
is how bad soybean oil is. And
canola.
When you start looking in the grocery store, almost all your packaged processed food has it in it.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's one of the real important things is people are getting huge amounts of it. People might think, oh, I don't cook with soybean oil. Well, you're getting it if you're getting anything in the middle of the grocery store. So that's why you want to really start looking at labels. And your mayonnaise is one of the big, it can say olive oil on the front. When you turn it on the back, soybean oil is usually the first oil. So it means it's that the most because it's cheap.
Well, does it make a difference if it says, light or name brand and light, mayonnaise?
Typically, the light stuff they've
Light
taken
salad,
out.
ranch dressing?
Yeah,
or?
typically, the light stuff they've taken out some of the fats, and we know that most of the stuff if you're talking about packaged processed foods,
Most of it is bad fat.
it's bad fat. So okay, they've taken out a little bit of
Yes.
the fat, but they put in some more carbohydrates because
Right.
that's just kind of the way
But
it works.
even if you go to, like I said, we recommend people eating organic. But people think then, okay, well, you can go to eat organic and then get packaged processed organic food and it's better. Not necessarily.
No.
It sometimes is organic soybean oil, which is still not good. So, we kind of ourselves can't believe when we go through the big grocery store that we don't have around here, but that's supposed to have a lot of organic food. When we look at those, we're surprised sometimes at still what kind of fats they're using in the dressings, in the mayonnaise, so you have to really look. You can find some, no doubt. We actually carry a mayonnaise that's made with avocado oils for ourselves. We sell it at the store, but mostly we keep it because we can't find it ourselves around here.
And it's easier than making
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. And I do make my own mayonnaise too, but it's easier, of course, if it's already made. But this avocado oil is a really good base for mayonnaise.
Well, actually,
and so is olive oil.
Avocados in avocado oil is a great oil.
It's got good fat.
That's why, like I asked you last week about extra virgin olive oil.
Same thing. If there's one oil that you should be able to go to in your kitchen and say, okay, I'm going to have to keep an oil for me, for my cooking and so on, it should be extra virgin olive oil. Now, I'm going to turn to the cook and say, okay, now how do you use this stuff?
Extra virgin olive oil
You don't want to use it in high temperatures.
You don't want to go to high
I remember that, like frying.
And you always want to
which
look
you
at
should
that.
fry anyway.
I have looked a lot on the smoke points of oils because I do cook so much. And when you get over the smoke point, you actually damage the oil, and actually sometimes it changes the composition to be bad for you when it's usually an oil that's not bad for you.
Right.
So olive oil is 325, so you shouldn't go over 325 degrees in olive oil, which I know in my cooking I'm almost always over 325, and most people are. Even if they think they're doing a low temperature, even medium is going to probably go a little bit higher than that. So if it sizzles in the pan, you're going to actually go higher than 325, so that's when you shouldn't use olive oil. I don't use it, like if you're baking something, if you use olive oil and the temperature is 375, too hot. Can't do that either. So I use olive oil in cold. If I'm doing salads, if I'm doing salad dressings, things that are not going to be heated, use olive oil because it's actually it's an omega-9 and it's a good oil to have, but you just don't want to go over its smoke point. The ones to cook with, I have this question all the time, what can I cook with? Well, one of your only cooking oils that have omega-3, which is what's really lacking in the American diet, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, is your walnut oil. So walnut oil is probably one of the better on the omega-3s, and it actually has a higher smoke point as long as you get the refined. If you actually get non-refined, you can't go very high either. So even though we usually like the oils that are not, you can't use them in cooking. So you do want to go to the refined ones when you go to the cooking. Avocado oil. Really good oil, does not contain omega-3s, but one we use a lot, it's just expensive and you can't find a lot, is macadamia nut oil. So you start looking, and so a lot of the nut oils is kind of what's better for you when you look.
And let's talk about that nut oil thing, because a lot of people say, oh, well, peanut oil. You realize a peanut's not actually
It's not a nut.
It's a legume, like a bean, okay?
So it's more like a soybean oil.
Yeah.
Although it doesn't have the research that says how bad it is, like the soybean oil.
That's true.
But it is not a nut oil, a tree nut. So I'll say the tree nut oils are your better oils to actually cook with. We even do use something called rice bran oil. You don't see as much out there about it, but that's another one that actually got a high smoke point, and it doesn't change the taste of foods.
No.
Because I don't like, now coconut oil is something that you can use. I don't like that it makes everything taste like coconut. So in my case, I don't use it much, but some people like the taste. So that's another one that can go to high temperatures.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's.
All right. 896-0713, 800-349-0713. Our phone lines are open to you. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Our Monday morning live edition of Healthy Living South Mississippi's Doctor's Nutrition Show. Jim Tabor along with Doctors Jim and Janine Fox of Doctor's Nutrition, located on Callan Road in Gulfport, just south of Pass Road. We're talking about fats this morning. Good ones, the bad ones, anything that could be detrimental. And as we said, we're talking about some different cooking oils that people can't. You try to decide which are the best ones. And you cook with them all year, but especially this time of the year, and here in about a week, you're really going to be
And a lot of your
tearing it up.
baked goods, that's one of the problems is, yes, they put tons of sugar in it, but there's alternate things that you can use for sugar, but people put the bad fat in it. And so it's not just that it's got fat in it, it's what kind of fat they use.
And one of the things, I know probably most of us out there are old enough to remember back when they told us that margarine was so good. Mm-hmm. Remember that one?
Yep.
Yeah, well, if you bought that, I got some land I'd like to talk to you about too. Now, that brings up something that when you look at packaged processed foods, pay attention for, it doesn't matter what kind of oil is in it, so to speak, if it says it's hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated. If it's got those two words, hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated, it's got something in it that's going to ultimately wind up being trans fats. And we all know now that trans fats are so bad for us.
Right.
So that's why
and the
margarine's
problem,
bad.
a lot of people say, oh, well, the research says fat in general is bad for you. Well, most of the research, they use soybean oil. Most of the research, because we'll get the papers when it'll be a paper about fat and how bad it is, they always use the really bad fats. They don't use walnut oil.
All right. Dave from Loosedale wants to know what foods are a good source for good fats.
Fish.
Fish.
That's your best one, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also your nuts, your tree nuts.
And
You know,
avocados.
Almonds.
Avocados.
Like
yeah.
almonds.
Yeah. Almonds are great.
Walnuts are great. You know, all of the various tree nuts are really pretty good for us, Dave.
Like I said, avocado is probably your
avocados-
best vegetable. I mean, it's actually the best. Most
Well, it's a
vegetables
fruit,
are not
but yeah.
high in fat, and most fruits are not high
No,
in fat.
Technically, it's a fruit.
But
yeah.
avocado is a fruit, and
Yeah.
it is high in fat, and it is a good fat.
It
But
really is.
Fish. Let's talk a minute about omega-3s, because that is what our diet is so lacking in.
Yeah.
Our diet gets a lot of omega-6s. Even a lot of your nuts and stuff have more omega-6s.
Right.
But omega-3s are what are so lacking in the American diet, and your best source of omega-3 is fish.
Yes.
Now, the fatty fish are better. Your salmon, your sardines, I mean,
Right.
even little anchovies. I mean,
Believe it or not, anchovies.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, some of the little fishy fish actually are really good sources of omega-3.
You'll be smelling those for a while.
And
Yeah.
we say that about omega-3s, and we honestly have proof. We have a test that we do called the Omega Check. It was put out by the Cleveland Heart Institute, which if anybody's ever heard of them, is one of the biggest heart hospitals in the country. There's tons of research done at Cleveland, and they do a lot on omega-3s. Well, they actually came up with this test, and when we do the test, it is actually sent to Cleveland. So it is sent there. They do a test to see your ratios of omega-3 to omega-6s, and what their research has found is if your omega-3s are on the higher end and you have a good ratio, then your heart health is much better, and in case of a heart attack, you're much less likely to die from it.
Yeah, you're more apt to survive.
Exactly. So they have a lot of research on that. On the people we've done omega checks on, every person that we've done an omega check, if they are not supplementing omega-3, even if they say they eat fish twice a week, they're deficient. So I can honestly say, I don't think we've ever seen someone that had enough omega-3 that wasn't supplementing it.
And even those that are supplementing, a lot of times, if they're not taking pretty high doses,
It's still
are
low.
gonna be there.
All right, Lindy from Hurley wants to know, are trans fat-free foods really healthy?
Well, you know,
Not
that's a
necessarily.
really interesting thing because our government, in all their infinite wisdom,
Here we go.
and it is infinite, right?
Yep.
They say that anything less than a half a gram is still okay.
And so
I
they
mean,
can be listed as
It can list
trans
as
fat free.
fat-free, and actually still have some trans fats in it. So that's where you have to go back to those key words, Lindy. Look for the words hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated. And if it's got that,
Or soybean oil or canola oil.
Right.
Even when they just say vegetable oil, it's usually something that is not good.
Typically not good for
So again, look at all those words because it's hard to say just because it says it's trans fat free does not mean that it's necessarily healthy. But back to the omega check, what we were saying, if somebody's not supplementing and supplementing a lot. Now, another question we ask, what's the best way to supplement omega-3s? And that is your fish oil. Yes, flax can actually contain some omega-3s. It's actually 3, 6, and 9. And your body can convert that omega-3 into a usable form. But that's if it's working perfectly.
well, that makes your liver has to. There's
Yeah.
a system in our liver, if you will, a metabolic pathway, and it's called the delta 6 detransferase, and that delta 6 pathway actually converts omega-3s and omega-6s. So if you've got a predominantly omega-6s, you're not going to get enough of the omega-3s done. And in some cases, they've actually, in animal studies and so on, and even humans, they've done some studies where they see somebody that takes flax oil today, and they measure them as a baseline and what their omega-3 content is, put them on flax oil, and then at periodic intervals check those things for the omega-3. So see how fast you can convert it. In some people, it can take up to 7 weeks for them to yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's looking at me.
So
like,
the people say,
yeah.
"Oh, well, I take
Wow.
flax oil, I get plenty of omega-3s." We don't see that when we do the test.
No.
They don't get plenty of omega-3s. Now, your fish oils that are high in the EPA and DHA, and fish oils are not equal. I don't care if it's 1,000 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams; they can be totally different. One can be 5, 6 times stronger than the other one, and you have to have a pretty high strength of the active ingredients in order to work. So you got to look at the EPA and DHA content. Our fish oil that we have is what they call pharmaceutical grade,
Right.
and it actually is one of the higher ones per pill of the EPA and DHA that you can get.
Yes.
And-
That's the key to it, really.
Right, it is. So that is real important to look at. And even then, even our high strength that might be equivalent to 6 other fish oil pills, you need at least 4 of those, sometimes 6. So you need a high dose of it
Takes a
to
bunch.
actually make your body get enough omega-3 because of our American diet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Freddie called in, wants to know, is cocoa butter a good cooking substitute for oils?
No, it's got a little too much of the saturated fats. You're better off to have something that's got more of the monosaturated fats, like olive oil. We talked about olive oil. Olive oil is good in the monos. So is avocado
I've never cooked
oil.
with cocoa butter. I don't know.
Well,
or
it-
put it on skin. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's where
Something
most
I've
people-
never cooked with.
It's it's when you look at it, it's more. It doesn't have the right kind of omega-6s in it. does have some. The one omega-6 that we can't live without is something called arachidonic acid, or AA. You'll see it listed as AA a lot of times, but it's arachidonic acid. And you know, when you look at the content of something like cocoa butter, you know, it's really just not, it's not suitable, so to speak, for a large ingesting, like when you're cooking.
On the
something with it.
testing that we do, they do test for arachidonic acid as well.
That's one of the
And
keys,
most
yeah.
people have enough of that. So don't go out and try to get that, because
No.
most people do get that in the American diet.
Right.
It's actually the ratios of omega-3s to that we don't get.
Abigail from Bay St. Louis wants to know, do good fats affect my BMI?
Yes,
Yes.
but not in the way you're thinking, probably. When you think about this, Abigail, here's the deal. Most people that are eating or having a BMI that's going up, in other words, that's the body mass index, in other words, where you're gaining too much weight, so to speak. It's probably because of the more carbohydrate load that you're getting, and we know that that does adversely affect the BMI. The good fats our body can use as energy, and they don't
And
necessarily
it
store
actually
it as
helps
fat.
you burn fat.
Right.
Now, you can't do, what I tell people all the time, is you can't just add good fats and keep eating all those carbs and sugar and expect
Right.
to lose weight. It actually takes decreasing the carbs and the sugar and increasing the good fats to actually help weight loss. Because people always are like, oh, y'all probably don't eat no fat. And I'm like, we actually eat a lot of fat. We eat none of the bad fat, though. I mean, I can
Right.
honestly say we don't eat out. I cook everything from scratch. I know exactly what kind of fat we're getting. And, you know, he's probably underweight, and I'm the same weight I was in high school. So it does make a difference with keeping your weight down to eat your good fats, but you can't do it along with a high carbohydrate, high sugar diet and expect to lose weight.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, she's a very good cook. All right, we're going to be right back with our last break of the day and this week's special. Stay tuned. And welcome back. We're in our final segment right now. You still have time to call 896-0713, 800-349-0713. We've got another question called in that we'll get to right now before we do our weekly special. Will in Ocean Springs wants to know, is there some other form of supplement you can take if you are allergic to fish oils?
Well, you know, and we get this a lot, one of the best ones to go to next is krill. And the thing about krill is it's a plankton. So you got to fight the big whales for it. But other than that, it's really good. And it does have the omega-3s and so on. It does have some omega-6s, arachidonic acid. It's really a pretty good
It does have
oil.
some astaxanthin, which is a really good
Right.
antioxidant. And
Right.
the EPA and DHA in krill is going to be much lower, but it is a higher absorbability.
Right.
So krill is another really good form of supplement. We were going to talk about that on this segment anyway. Now, yes, flax, we talked about it. And even though it is hard to convert, it is another alternative. And then there's some algae supplements that doesn't contain as much of the EPA, but does have the DHA. And so some of the algae is another form of supplementation. And so there's other ways of getting it, because believe we do have a few people that can't
Yeah.
do the fish. I mean, and some people
Really
are
do.
allergic to fish, or some people just cannot digest it. And krill is a much easier digestible form. That's what we always go to next, is the krill.
Yeah, the droplet size on krill, in other words, when you look at the chain size, particle size, and so on, chemically, krill is just smaller so that you can actually absorb it easier. Like you said, it's much easier to absorb. And most people, even if they've got a problem with, you know, a lot of people with fish oil, they say, well, they repeat it or burp it, you know, and krill tends to not be the problem with that. It's kind of funny because you open a bottle of krill and it's like, oh, geez, this stuff
Yeah.
smells like, you know, but yet when you take it, it doesn't cause the problems that you get with
And
the,
we've mentioned the Omega Check a few times, and just to
Right.
let people know what the cost of the Omega Check is. To do the Omega Check is $75 plus, of course, the $5 draw fee. If you add it to another test, it's $75. So, like I said, that's one that we can do if you are concerned and want to see if you're getting enough omega-3. It's a good way to check for it.
All right. Before we get to our next question, we're going to tell you about this week's special.
Yes.
Yes, we got our specials. And
Wow.
We're going to put on it.
Guess what?
Yeah, what else? All of the Doctor's Nutrition omega-3s, all the Doctor's Nutrition krill, and even the Doctor's Nutrition flax oil. So,
Right. So all
you
your
know,
good fats.
All your good fats, so to speak, right there.
All right. So you get a 25% discount
Yeah,
on that.
that's a good
this week
deep
only.
discount on it this
Right.
week, yeah.
And you'll be open through Friday, huh?
We will. No,
actually
actually Saturday.
Saturday, okay.
Yeah.
No, actually
Okay.
Saturday we will be open too. We're going to be closed next week, Monday and Tuesday.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Devin of Biloxi wants to know, do appetite suppressants affect my good fat levels? And do you have a natural appetite suppressant?
You know, it doesn't. The only way it's an indirect effect on your good fats, okay? Because it depends on what you eat. If you take some sort of appetite suppressant, which we're not a fan of, I'll be honest with you. It's going to affect the amount that you eat. You're just not hungry. So in that, if you're
You just don't eat as much.
You just don't eat as much, and if you're not eating a lot of really good fats, anyhow, then yeah, it's going to affect it. It's not. It's an indirect
And
effect.
actually,
It's not direct.
okay, appetite suppressants. What's good for appetite suppression? For one, is cut out the sugar and carbohydrates.
Right.
And it'll make you not as hungry because it lowers the insulin. And another thing is eat good fat. If you eat enough good fat, you're not hungry.
Right.
And so that's what we tell people to do for appetite suppression,
Right.
is change the way you eat. Because what you eat plays a huge role on appetite. Now, we do have a few things that do help suppress the appetite and carbohydrate cravings, which is like the 5-HTP, which is also increases serotonin. And when you have higher serotonin, you don't tend to be as hungry. So it is an appetite suppressant. And we have a few things called carb crave complex and things that have 5-HTP in it. All of it has 5-HTP in it.
Pretty much, yeah.
We don't like the stimulant appetite suppressants. But he
Right.
said we don't like the stimulants because stimulants are bad for the heart. They increase the blood pressure, and it's really not good for you. And as soon as you stop them, you eat everything you see.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Devin and Biloxi, I've heard that refrigerating fish oil helps with the fishy taste.
Yes.
Does refrigerating fish oil degrade the value of its effect?
Oh no,
No, not
it
at
does
all.
not.
We
And
tell
it
people
really-
that all the time.
And it really does help with that, because I have a lot of people that have that. They say, well, that stuff will kind of repeat on me. And I said, well, the first thing I'd try would be refrigeration.
And actually, or freezing it.
Freezing it,
it's
actually.
even more because it
Really
won't
refrigerate it.
actually unfreeze until it gets in your stomach, and then a lot of times it's already a little
Passed.
lower before you
Yeah.
actually get it thawed.
Yeah.
So we definitely tell people to refrigerate and freeze fish oil to actually help if they don't like that repeating. Now, our fish oil it's a distilled fish oil, so it does not have its fishiness anyway. Can't say that everybody, 100% of the people can take it, because we still have people that can.
Yeah.
But it's a much higher percentage that can take our fish oil. And then we have one called monopure. That is actually a special process that is actually 3 times more absorbable than other fish oils, and it has had a lot of the fishiness taken out of it as well.
It's what they call a pre-digested.
It's a pre-digested, where it's already been digested so that you can digest it easier.
Yeah.
And so that's another option if you can't take fish oils, to try the monopure,
Yeah.
which we do have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couple minutes left. 8960713, 800-349-0713 are the numbers that you can call with your question. We're talking about fats this morning, and which pretty much affect us all year long.
Oh, yeah.
Get through the wrong ones.
We have
Yeah.
to have them. The brain, it's so important to have fat.
Really?
And
And
especially in kids.
Speaking of the brain,
So there really is something good if they call it a fat head.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. That's true. It really is. And speaking of the brain, and speaking of the rise of Alzheimer's, if you think about it, this is a fairly modern problem that we have here. Is the drastic increase in Alzheimer's and various dementias that are lumped under it. And when this came out, and this just came out like this year in 17, about the actual soybean oil and also the flax. I mean, not
Canola.
flax, but the canola oil. And the canola oil is a really big one because that's been so used so much, and people say, "Oh, canola oil is so good." And it's kind of an oxymoron. They talk about organic canola. Canola originally was rapeseed oil. That's the name of it. It has a compound in it called uric acid that we can't process, so it's really bad for us. And so we can't. It has to be genetically modified, so to speak. So now, genetically modified and organic, not real sure about that one. And the research says it's bad for your brain too. So
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you educated you a little bit this morning on the good, the bad, and the ugly fats. You make better choices when you're making your purchases at the grocery store.
There you
But
go.
next week, of course, it's Christmas Day. We will have a show, though it will be pre-recorded. But the subject will be,
Why is it important to take care of your own health?
yep,
Yeah.
there you go. And so anyway, again, we will not be here live next week, nor New Year's Day.
That's true.
And like I said, next week our store will be closed Monday and Tuesday, but the rest of the week will be open.
Yes.
All right. Well, hope you have a wonderful, great week. Finish up your holiday shopping and everything, and Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you.